Hello, my name is Faraz SHEIKH and I am from the United States. I am doing my PhD in Indiana University and I teach religion at St. Joseph's University. So I have been asked 3 questions. The first, something that I find similar between Mevlana and Said Nursi. The one thing that I think stands out is both of them are engaging the Quran in a very unique way, because Mevlana and Nursi don't explain the Quran's teaching by verse. They use the larger Quranic teaching to understand the specific verses, and they use metaphors and allegory and stories to explain the meaning of the verses, and they don't interpret literally. So really they try to bring out the universal teachings of the Quran. So I think that both of them have this aim to bring out the universal aspect, universal truth of the Quranic teaching, and they want religion and religious piety and taqwa to be based on the Quranic teaching. So that's very similar. What is different? There are many differences. The one thing I would say is Rumi's method is different from Said Nursi's method. Rumi's method is more in line with the method of his time, when people were either very legally minded or fiqh based religion, and the other trend was what Rumi exemplifies, which is the spiritual and mystical trend. So Rumi's method was the mystical method. So his concepts of love and other concepts that he uses, they are very lofty conclusions. Like he speaks about conclusions, but he doesn't always show the reader how he got to that conclusion. He leaves it to the reader, or he expects his listener to already have a basic sense of who God is and what's the relationship between God and human. And his method is focused on now taking such a person closer and closer to God by reminding him some of big truths. Nursi's method, I feel, is not simply one of giving conclusions and reminders, but he starts most of Nursi's sections, he starts with a thesis statement or a conclusion. But if you read carefully with a focus on method, you understand that he is actually trying to teach any person how they can use their faculties of reasoning and their experience of the world, and how they can find evidences for a conclusion that will be their belief. So I think Nursi's method is to establish a sound and evidence-based belief and for the modern age. So I think in that sense Nursi has a different method. The third question about what in the future we can do from Nursi's and Rumi's teachings, what should be the next step in Turkey and outside Turkey. I think because of the global situation in the world, a lot of attention is given to politics. So that's understandable. People want different, people of different religions to live together peacefully. So people want to, look at Nursi and Rumi and say how they are talking about love and understanding. So that's a good thing, but I think it reduces the value of the teachings of Nursi and Rumi, because they have so much more to say than what politically needed. political conciliation, understanding, you can achieve by other thinkers also, by other means. You don't really need Nursi and Rumi there. The value of Nursi and Rumi, real value, I think, is somewhere else, and that is in the modern world. There is a desire for people now to look to religion in its real, original teachings, because people are disappointed with the cultural traditions of their culture. They see other cultures, they go meet other people. They say, you know, I do something like this, but somebody else is doing something like that. Why should I do it like this? And they have questions about the difference between religion or truth and just culture. So I think because that is a concern, Rumi and Nursi, in the future, we should focus on their method of interpreting the Quran. What kind of methodology we can learn from them for interpreting the Word of God. And that's, I deliberately say Word of God and not just Quran, because it shouldn't be made, Quran as the book of Muslims. The universalism in Nursi and Mevlana''s teachings should be presented as listening to the message of the God who created the whole world. So in that context, that is in their teaching, and that is not something modern. A lot of times people think that to read in a universal way is somehow a Western idea or a new idea. Actually, I think if you study Mevlana's and Rumi's interpretations of the Quran and their method, that should be highlighted, so it will empower the young people who are trying to read the Quran themselves and they are having problem how to understand this verse. It says something here, but it says something there. A lot of questions people have about it. So I think methodological studies of Nursi and Rumi about Quran interpretation can help reconcile those verses that people have problem with, and in a way that doesn't ignore the Quran, but actually I think we have resources in Nursi, especially from my study, because I study Nursi more, that we can study his methodology of interpretation, and it can solve many issues and problems that an average reader is facing as they are trying to understand the religion in its original form through the Quran. So I think that would be a big step forward. It would be a very good thing if the methodology of Quranic interpretation in Rumi's writings and Nursi, moving away from the traditional tafsir literature, the traditional way of verse-by-verse tafsir, but to read the Risale and Rumi's Masnavi as interpretations, as a kind of tafsir, and focus on the method, that will be very good. Thank you very much.